Hello and welcome to the 1940s Wardrobe, a series of short-ish videos looking at women's wear in the 1940s. I'm Lucy Adlington, writer and collector, and I run the History Wardrobe series of presentations. Everything that you're going to see today is original and it's from the History Wardrobe collection. Today's topic, coats. And coats are often overlooked in clothes history, which is a shame because they are an essential staple of your wardrobe. So I'm going to look at a range of different coats from the 40s. I wonder which one you will like best. So as we start our decade in 1940s, what's the typical style? I can show you here a lovely coat from this year. It's quite a long, straight silhouette, minimal padding still in the shoulders, and what I love about this coat is that if the coat were to flap open, you'd get a nice pop of colour from the green lining, and whoever's had this made has used a little bit of the lining as an additional feature there. So if you're looking to get a new coat in the 1940s, a tailor-made such as this is a great choice if you've got the money for it. And let me show you now. This is from 1939, so just at the start of our era. This is Locata Company, who are a London company, and then they moved to Leeds. And inside I had a peek through and I found a style very similar to the brown coat here. So that double-breasted style. And if you're sending off for a tailor-made coat, lucky you, you'll need to send your measurements. So there's a measurement chart there at the back. And then you choose your fabric, or sometimes a tailor will make up your own fabric. And one advantage of this is that you get a choice not only over the embellishments, but also great quality fit for yourself. And you can pick your linings. So I love this. A selection of sample fabrics, taffetas and crepes and satin for your lining. And these might be in silks or synthetic fibres. So if you're very lucky, you're getting a tailor-made coat. But there are lots of different options for coats, and one of them would be, of course, to buy a shop-bought coat. And if you can't get to the shops for whatever reason, try mail order catalogues. Got a couple here. So this is a very typical catalogue. It's from J.A. Davis, that's another London company, mostly black and white with a little bit of colour. And here, a colour page showing off really smart styles there. You can see some plain wools and some herringbone, and then plaid is hugely popular. So when you send off for your coat, just be aware that in the catalogues, the language used, they're really going to promote the clothes with words such as delightful, attractive, luxury, popular. And it's only when the coat arrives and you get to try it on at home that you see what it's really like. It's a bit like internet shopping nowadays. Luckily, many companies offer 7 days free approval, so you can try it. If you don't like it, send it back. So the coat styles, the long straight coat is popular, but also at the start of the war years, we've got a coat such as this. And this fabulous coat is what's known as a swagback. So it's loose and open at the front, but the back is cut so that there's a lovely flare at the back, also called a jigger coat. And this is in a plaid, very popular at the start of the war. It does have pockets. In fact, this one has little pockets as well, only on the outside, nothing useful on the inside. And the lining is pure silk. You can see, oh, there's the shop name on there, the brand. And unfortunately, at some point in this coat's life, the moths have had a good nibble on the silk lining. So there are our popular styles, and the catalogues at least have a range of styles and a range of sizes. Now this is a catalogue from 1942, so we're further into the war at this stage. We're not seeing any colour illustrations whatsoever. It's all black and white. The paper quality is much poorer. And we've got another interesting detail. So if you have a peek at this page of coats and there's a suit and two coats, we'll see that we've got a Harella coat for sale. Harella is a company that starts in London, moves to Leeds, very popular after the war as well. So it's all wool, delightfully soft in texture, it says, in off-white only, which doesn't sound very practical. And it is priced at £11, 3 shillings and a penny. It's quite a lot of money, isn't it? But underneath it specifies 18 coupons. By 1942, Britain, like many other countries, has rationing. And this means that every individual will be issued with a ration card, unless they're in the services, in which case they have a uniform. And these cards have a points system, they have coupons. And at the start of the war in Britain, we have 66 coupons per adult. But unfortunately, as the country suffers shortages, this dwindles to 24 coupons just after the war. And if you consider that it's 18 coupons for a coat, that makes you realise what a strong investment a good coat is, because it's going to use up a large proportion of your clothing coupons. Now, another interesting detail from this Derry and Tom's department store catalogue is that there's a version of the Harella coat in a utility style. And as you probably know, the utility scheme is is the name that's used to describe an initiative by the British government, essentially to avoid waste. They look to have more control over manufacture, design and fabric use, so that coats are being made with specifications that use as little fabric as decently possible while still trying to look stylish. So the revers will be smaller, you won't have these deep cuffs, you won't have such deep pockets. Annoyingly, some women's coats have just the flap on them but no practical pocket. Hems won't be as deep and some coats won't be lined. So the utility version of the Harella coat is only £4, 10 shillings and 9p. But still 18 coupons. So you need to have the coupons and the cash to get yourself a new shop-bought coat. What if you need to be thriftier? Well, this is where home sewing comes in. And making a coat it's really skilled. You need a combination of techniques, and a lot of coats may use tailoring techniques as well. And I've got a book here, the Haslam Practical Guide to Dressmaking and Tailoring, and it just staggers me actually the amount of skill required, a little sample there, of making a nicely tailored and fitted coat. Luckily, girls in Britain at least will have sewing lessons at school to some standard, and then a lot of them may take up sewing professionally. So if you're feeling brave enough, why not have a go at making your own coat? And you can get coat patterns from Vogue. Vogue offer patterns that you send off for, or Mordella, that's another popular brand, or Butterick. But you can also send off for them from magazines such as Woman's World. So Woman's World here is looking to attract buyers by offering a bargain pattern for a coat or jacket, only 6p, see inside. So there is a sense that at least you can craft clothes yourselves and have a new coat in your wardrobe if your old coat's looking pretty shabby. However, where are you going to get the fabric from? In shops in Britain, in many countries during the war, fabric, particularly to make extravagant styles, is definitely in short supply. And women have to get rather ingenious. So one way to get fabric is by using blankets. And if you dye it, try and add some nice accessories and styling details. It won't look quite so much like a blanket. And one style of blanket that's particularly popular is the British Air Force, the lovely blue blankets. So a blanket coat, fair dues. But if you do happen to have a coat such as this, a 1940 swagger coat, they're not so fashionable as the war goes on. And you might think, let's remodel this to a more fashionable style so you'll save money on fabrics. And I've got a pattern that tells you how to turn your old-fashioned swagback coat into a stylish new fitted coat, and it shows you how to mark the pattern onto your existing fabric. Essentially, you have to unpick the whole lot, and then what you do is turn it. So what was inside, the wall inside, is turned to the outside, which means that anything that's faded or stained is going to be hidden inside, and you can add a new lining as necessary. Another way of sprucing up your clothes is by dyeing them. So once you've unpicked them, dye them, particularly a coat that might have faded or looked particularly shabby. Now, if you didn't want to turn your own clothes into a new coat, you have to rifle through your husband's wardrobe, brothers, sons, whatever menfolk you can snaffle from, and here's a pattern, a man's coat converted into a child's winter coat. So while your fella's away, get in his wardrobe, get his clothes, and here's the pattern for turning your swagger coat into a styled jacket. And here, if you've got a really shabby coat, you can at least turn it into a bolero jacket there. So we're going to get really ingenious with our coats. Now, before I move on to the end of the war, I want to talk a little bit more about uniform coats, because if you're in the services, you'll be issued with a coat, and that could be Land Army, or it could be ATS or the Air Force or whatever. And the uniform coat I will show to you, fabulous example here, a lovely grey-green coat, stand-up collar if you need, and turn that up if it's really cold weather, if you're staffing the tea van or on duty over winter, you'll be needing this. And you might recognise the lovely greeny grey here. It's a Women's Voluntary Service coat, the WVS. You can see here emblems stitched on, Civil Defence, it's from Westmoreland, and then welfare stitched on the top. And Digby Morton, the London couturier, he has a hand in the design of the WVS uniform, so it's actually really quite smart. It's warm, it's practical, and look at that flash of colour from the lovely burgundy coloured lining, and it still has pockets, thank goodness. So super smart. And one thing that's significant about the WVS is that they are responsible for establishing clothing depots in Britain during the war, and in fact in many countries around the world. Superb voluntary organisation. And these clothing depots are to clothe people, refugees perhaps, or those who've been bombed out of their homes and lost everything, is to resupply them with clothes. So they are adept at getting clothes from wherever they can, donations and so on, or making things up so that nobody need do without. And I also love the fact that there are jumble sales across Britain. I love jumble sales, tables piled up with things. Another way to get hold of a used coat, a second-hand coat, or even from clothing swaps. So you take in a coat that doesn't work for you anymore, and perhaps you've outgrown it, and then you can pick up another coat. So there's my uniform coat from the WVS, and an intriguing one here. Not all coats are wool. This is a raincoat, and it's an incredibly stylish coat, and I still haven't worked out the textile that it's made of. It seems to be a very early kind of plastic. It's transparent, if you can see. So it's a fantastic style of raincoat, and it was actually bought in Rome in 1944 by a chap called Ernest, who was a sapper with the 8th Army. He fought at Monte Cassino, and as the 8th Army moved up the coast of Italy and they reached Rome, he spotted this in a shop and thought, my sweetheart Ada back in England will love this. And it was certainly something that would be very hard to get hold of in Britain by 1944. So Ada, who was working as a Red Cross nurse, would certainly have been hugely appreciative of this raincoat, which comes with a matching belt and, well, a fantastic rain hood. It's got beautiful detailing, beautiful stitching. I've never seen anything quite like this, so very happy to have this in the collection. And then we come, well, to the end of the war, but not peace. And the overriding impression I get from 1945, 1946 is not only that so many people are displaced and coming to terms with what peace means after 6 years of conflict, but also they're cold. Frankly, by 1944, 45, 46, heating fuel is in short supply. So even the couture houses of Paris are emphasising that we must have warmth and elegance. So here's an article about Paris clothes, November 1945, featuring a very stylish coat, military influence, but it's very, very thick wool, very sturdy lining, and it says Paris fashions, chic and warm. Because if you've no sort of heating at home, you're going to need quilted coats, potentially fur-lined coats, anything to stop you shivering. And that brings me to fur, because fur coats are quite common. They're not necessarily an elite item in Britain. You can have a coney rabbit fur coat, but you can also have fur trims, so collars and cuffs and so on, to make your coat extra snug. I do have fur coats in the History Wardrobe collection, some quite glamorous, some not so much. And I've got this one to show you, and it weighs a ton. Here we are. Right, lovely reddish colour, and if you peek inside, you'll see the CC41, that's the utility label, so it's a utility coat. And this coat was donated to a woman in Coventry who'd been bombed out of her home during the notorious raid in 1942. She had nothing but what she was wearing, and so it came as a gift, and she said she actually didn't dare wear it often because she felt really bad having this swanky coat when other people, she said, had nothing. And when it was donated to the History Wardrobe collection, the donor, who was from this family from Coventry, she said, "Oh, I hope the moths haven't had it." And I said, "Well, it's not likely. It's fake fur." You might not associate fake fur with the 1940s, but many countries are experimenting with synthetic fibres because natural fibres, wools and silks and cottons might be in short supply as a cheaper alternative as well. And furs are certainly requisitioned for troops who are fighting, they're in combat in very cold theatres of war. So it's a fake fur coat, not as warm as real fur. And like I say, it does weigh a ton, but you'd be very glad of any kind of coat in the cold wartime winters. But it's not all about warmth. In 1947, so we're post-war now, February 47 to be exact, it's a very, very cold winter, but fashionistas from around the world, editors and buyers and collectors, they are invited to Paris to see the launch of a designer who previously worked for Lucien Lelong in Paris, but now he's doing his own collection. And if I show you the silhouette, can you see there? Can you see the name at the bottom? Christian Dior. And Dior's new styles are sloping shoulders, not padded, very, very nipped in waist, probably fake pockets, and then this beautiful, very long line. This new style becomes known as the new look. So let me show you a new look coat. Sadly, not Dior. This is a British new look coat. It's got the 11 label inside, so very high quality, most likely made for export as well to boost Britain's coffers. So unlike Dior's styles, because Dior is bankrolled by a textile manufacturer, Marcel Boussac, this English style is looking to create as much exuberance and volume as possible, but not with a full circle or even semicircle skirt. So it has a princess line, quite slender cut to just below the bum, and then this incredible design, this exuberance here, flaring out so that as you turn, you've got at least a sense of the swish of the new look. And it's certainly got the long length, which requires a lot of fabric. So some women are canny and add different bands of fabric or fur to their coats to give them the length of the new look. This has got beautiful velvet additioning and styling, very nice indeed. No pockets, but it's a lovely teal blue wool as well. So that brings me to the end of my talk on coats. If you'd like to know more, I'm going to recommend one of my books. This is Women's Lives and Clothes in World War II, called Ready for Action. And you can also look out for my new publication, which deals with a darker side of fashion in the 1940s. It's called The Dressmakers of Auschwitz. I hope you've enjoyed this segment of the 1940s wardrobe, and I hope that you have picked out which is your favourite coat. So thank you very much from me, Lucy Adlington of History Wardrobe.